Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Nancy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Good morning. I'm excellent. How are you?
Good. So I'm excited to have you on, and maybe just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do with from a real estate standpoint.
Sure. We are more buy and hold now than anything, but we started out like everybody else with flipping. We started actually, I've been flipping for probably 10 or 12 years. Actually, I would say probably 20 years now. Time flies when you're having fun, but we really got invested and started to become full-time about 2019. I sold a couple of businesses that I had and just started focusing on real estate investing. So again, we started with many flips like everybody else. We wanted to get some capital and just kind of have a nest egg to start doing buy and holds with. Mm-hmm. But now we kind of have found our little niche in multi-use buildings in a micro market called Teeswater. So we have done a few projects there, and it's turned out really well. They're great cash flowing buildings. They are a fraction of the cost of the city, and rents tend to be 10 to 15% lower than the city. So yeah, they cash flow nicely.
Okay. So can I ask where that is?
Yeah, right. It's in South Bruce. So we are right between Wingham and Walkerton. Mm-hmm. So north of Listowel for anybody that's not really from the area.
Okay.
And really, we always joke that we're in the middle of nowhere, but we're really 30 minutes from everywhere. Mm. So Port Elgin, Southampton, all the beaches were somewhere between 30 minutes to Port Elgin and 40 minutes to Kincardine. So around that area. And then again, the bigger cities, if you can call it a big city, is Listowel.
I heard, and I've been there before, but Kincardine has like the best sunsets.
Oh, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Lake Huron is just a beautiful place in the afternoon or evening. Yes, the sunsets are incredible.
Awesome. So, and for those that are not in Ontario, these are small towns in southern Ontario, essentially.
That's correct. About an hour, well, maybe 2 hours west of Toronto.
Okay. Yeah. So you switched over from flipping. Was that in 2019 that you started doing the acquisitions on the buildings?
Yes, actually, we bought our first sixplex in 2019, and that was just before, obviously, the pandemic hit. So we bought it in 2019, but we didn't close on it until March of 2020. So that was kind of a crazy year for us because in March of 2020, everyone knows the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
But more importantly, my husband was diagnosed with cancer 3 days before we closed on that sixplex.
Oh, wow.
And then, the pandemic hit. So it was kind of a crazy year for us. But we both say to this point that it was good that we had something to focus on. So it was a lot. The sixplex was a lot to get through, but we managed to get much better at our systems at that time. And so it was a huge learning growth year for both of us, as well as personally, pushing through that kind of stuff. It's a lot to get through. So, but it turned out really, really good. And we took 8 months to flip that building. So through all of what we were going through in that time, it still only took us 8 months. And we ended up selling it there was around $200,000 profit in that building. So it was okay.
Okay. So some scary stuff, but I guess,
yes.
things have come around and worked out well.
Yes.
so you ended up flipping the building, which is quite interesting. And you're now doing more like holding of the buildings. You're buying and holding. Like how did the flipping, change over to holding?
I think in the end, everybody talks about buy and hold, buy and hold, buy and hold. And in the beginning, we started with single family homes, just duplexing them and selling them. But then you realize at some point through that process that it took us, well, from start to finish in most houses, we would flip in 4 months. So I was like, well, we can do that, but there's bigger projects, but the bigger projects at the first seem so scary, so we actually never intended on selling the sixplex. So we did a bit of over renovating because we did plan to keep it. But the market hit such a high at the time that we just decided that, it was better to just sell it and kind of move on. And because we had learned so much through that process, I thought we had better information and understanding for the next project. So we just did. We sold it. And then Dave, when he was off, when he was ill, he's a huge Kijiji guy because he's an old car guy. And he found this old grist mill in Teeswater. And that's when he was bugging me through the pandemic. Come on, let's go see this mill. And I'm like, I am not going to Teeswater. Nobody's in Teeswater. Nobody knows where Teeswater is. So eventually he got me to go up there because the property was listed on Kijiji.
Wow.
So we went there and it was just, we always say we never get.
Oh, I think I lost you. I can't hear you now. Something happened.
Okay. So yes, we went up to Teeswater, we pulled into the driveway, and we always say that we don't get emotionally involved in buildings, but this one just kind of took both of us right away. It was, it's built in 1888, and the family that owned it bought it in 1978. And that was right when the mill stopped operating. So they turned it into their family home, and they had obviously gotten rid of all the equipment and whatnot, but the garage downstairs was where he parked his old vehicles, and it's inside the house. So that's kind of what made us go see it to begin with. But we ended up taking that property. It's 8,000 square feet. We ended up taking that property and changing it into like a boutique hotel.
Nice.
We do micro weddings, corporate retreats, vacation rentals. So we put 10 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms in the place, and
Very cool.
it's a beautiful property. So that's and because it took us, same thing, it was 8 months start to finish. We just really loved the area. So then we started looking around, and we bought our first multi-use building up there and bought that, renovated it, added apartments, 2 commercial spaces, rented all that out. And then now we're just in the process of just redoing that exact same thing.
Very cool. So now you went from being a real estate investor to also in the hospitality business.
Yes. Yeah, that's a crazy journey in itself. But
what are some of the challenges, I guess, that you've encountered, making the leap over to, running essentially a different type of business altogether?
For sure. And we didn't really, we had some short-term rentals. I've always had short-term rentals. So it wasn't so foreign, but definitely on that kind of a scale, it was new. And so you know how it is when you're a real estate investor, you're busy, crazy anyways. So adding another job to that was a bit of a challenge. The biggest challenge I think we find transitioning from flips to full-time real estate investors is just the funds. Now you, quote unquote, you don't have a job. So you're, you don't have that quote unquote steady income for the bank. So that was a bit of a challenge at first, and it's getting easier. And again, as our systems get better and we look for buildings that we can, change into family, apartments, long-term rentals, then that becomes easier as well. But it's I always say the hardest part I always find about real estate investing is just dealing with the commercial mortgages, because literally, we can refinance something 4 months apart and the rules are completely different in 4 months than they were right then,
Yeah.
So that's always the biggest challenge I find. The construction side is the easy part for us. We're both tradespeople, so we both have that background, and I've been in construction my whole career. So that's the easy part. The tough part is getting in touch with the banks and trying to make that side work.
Yeah. I mean, I find, like even for our resort, the credit unions were a little bit easier to work with than the typical big banks. So sometimes working with a mortgage broker potentially, or going to a credit union directly that, might be local as an example, like they might have just different rules that may work. But I do agree, like the financing piece, especially in, this market, this time where rates are at an all-time high that we haven't seen before, and, rules are changing all the time. It definitely can be tough for sure. And especially when you're looking at like, a hotel, motel, Airbnb type of business, that's a whole different ball game as well, because you're not, into their cookie cutter long-term rental type of things that they like. So it's it's definitely difficult. What about like marketing? Like how did you go about marketing for, people to come and stay?
We in the very beginning, we invested large into our website for the property, but I would say, and we have a social media presence, but it's not as it should be.
And
So
what's the website and the social media handle for people?
It's the website is thepostandbeam.ca, and then the Instagram handle is at the Post and Beam. So it's growing, but I am not a social media person, so it has been coming along slowly and steadily. But ironically, really surprisingly for me, it's a lot of the locals that rent.
Okay.
So and I really didn't think that was our market at first. And I still don't think it is. I think we have the potential. We have a small airport close to us, so we do have the potential to fly people in from everywhere. But yeah, that's been a challenge too, for sure, because that's not my background. So again, learn as you go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, these aren't like cookie cutter flip deals or burr deals or buy and hold deals where, you could probably estimate the exit. This is kind of like you're, pivoting along the way, and there's really never like a firm end, right? And you're
That's
always,
right.
you're always re-improvising and that kind of stuff. You mentioned systems, I think when you bought your sixplex. What are some systems that you put in place, I guess, in the last 3 years that maybe you didn't have before that has helped you get to where you are today?
Project management was a huge one. I didn't even know we needed project management at that time, because we had done it all of ourselves. And, on a house, you don't need it. I mean, I shouldn't say you don't need it. You absolutely need a plan ahead of time. But I think we learned a ton about having that plan in place before we even close. So now, we always have 3 to 6 viewings before we close. We bring in some of our subs at that point. We bring in our architect. We have all the design ready to go for the day we close. We even start applying for some of the permits, because depending on where you are, they will allow you, with the owner's permission, to actually apply for the permits. So most of that stuff now we have a really good handle on. We have that all down pat, so that day one we can actually start demo. Whereas before we had the property for sometimes 6 weeks to 2 months before we could start demo, because that was the time that we were doing everything. So, and when you're holding that property with the interest rates that we pay, it just seems like it was crazy. It was a waste of money. So we managed to streamline that process. Most of the other stuff is construction based, and so those processes were always in place, but we needed to get better at before we close. So, and then trying also to allow for all of the hidden, because we do a lot of historic buildings, like old, 1800s, early 1900s. So, and we love them, but there's always challenges with those buildings. So yeah, you kind of got to have that contingency plan. For most buildings is much larger in the buildings that we do, because you start demo and then it's like, oh, who knew that surprise was going to be there?
Yeah, for sure. Well, especially in houses from the 1800s. Have you dealt with any that have been, like whether you're backing onto conservation, or you've got, like something that you've got to preserve in the house because it's, like something that obviously the city wants you to keep. Like, have you dealt with any of that?
We deal with conservation, but we haven't dealt with heritage. So thankfully, however, we are looking at a building now that will have a heritage designation, but there's not a lot of outside work that I would want to do anyways. We want to preserve the history most of the time of the outside of the building. So generally speaking, that's not been an issue. The Conservation Authority is always, it's tough. You have to really know ahead of time, ask all of your questions ahead of time. But even that, you can ask a million questions and then all of a sudden you get into it and it's, oh, we didn't know you wanted to do that. Yeah, you did. So, but the mill property, because we have our own dam and we own the water rights to the property there, and we provide hydro. So the dam produces hydro. So that we thought was going to be way more of a challenge than it is. But they were really good to work with. So that was nice, because that could have been a disaster. Although we want to do some more stuff there, and there's going to be some archaeological studies that we have to get into if we develop the lots there, which, I mean, it is what it is. So you just kind of
some things to keep in mind as
yes.
As these bigger properties, sometimes, they're beautiful, their surroundings are beautiful, but then you start digging into it and they're, next to conservation or, different things that you've got to do to potentially develop this place or change the use and that kind of stuff. So,
yeah.
So obviously you've done that. What does your management, like your day-to-day look like? Because I mean, it sounds like you're, obviously you're managing this Airbnb with a bunch of rooms and you've got other projects on the go. Like what does a typical week look like for you?
Chaos. We have a lot on the go over this last couple of years. I'm trying to cut back on some of that, but in saying that, now we're opening a bar. So we're opening a golf pub in Teeswater in the new building that we're doing. So it's always education. So I try to set out at the beginning of my week, some time to do some networking, some time for business growth for sure. It's my number one priority. Because if you don't set it aside, the day just goes, one day after another. So I'm pretty adamant about setting that kind of stuff aside. What I'm not great at is setting aside, personal time, right? That's where I'm trying to get to that point now, because the busier you are, the busier you allow yourself to be, and you don't give yourself any time for downtime. So we just in the last, like, literally 3 months have set our phones aside on the weekends, and that's it. The weekends are just to relax and chill. But most days, we're up by 5:30, 5:45 in the morning, and starting our day by 6:30. And then Dave is he looks after the job sites and the construction side of things, and I'm looking after the business development, and both of us trying to find properties and, vet new kind of properties and whatnot. So, but we have an excellent site super. My oldest son works for us full time. And so he's our site super and transitioning to our project manager. So as we bring on more new people and train them, then we would like him to move up to a project manager. So we're completely hands off, only working on the business instead of in it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all have to, as entrepreneurs and business owners, like we all have to be in it at some point, but then you start slowly replacing some parts, and hopefully you're working on it for 95% of the time moving forward. So the post and beam, is there a restaurant? Is it more like an Airbnb type of thing where they have the lock boxes and then self check-in? Like, do you have staff other than cleaning?
Yes. So we do have a part-time manager for that property, but we get actually as involved or uninvolved as you want. So you can literally have the key at the box, code, you're in and you can do whatever. Or we have 3 different personal chefs that'll come in and do dinner for you. We can do an ice cream flight to another small town. We have live music that'll come in. We can do beer tours and wine tours directly from our place. We have a couple local golf courses, so we do golf stay and play packages, which also in the winter time now we're going to do with the pub. So because we have the indoor golf simulators, we'll do the stay and play all winter. So that was kind of also to help both sides of that business. So yeah, it's growing a lot. Every year, obviously, as more people find out about it, it gets a little busier. But right now, we're really almost like a 30-30-30 split with corporate, vacation, and micro weddings. So we allow weddings up to 35 people. And then again, we can do all the catering, or they can just come and rent the property and have their pictures and do their own thing.
Okay. All right. So it sounds, I think, similar, to how I've set up the resort as well, like where we can have the chefs come, we can have the RMTs come, we can have different things come to the site. And so with that, is that you that's planning it? Like if somebody wants a micro wedding, or have you found like a planner, an event planner to help you with the coordination, that kind of stuff?
It has been me. We did start originally with an event planner, but most of the event planners want to do, like, they don't want to work with 35 or under, right. They want a wedding of 100 or 200 people. So it took us a bit to find somebody. And so my executive assistant just kind of transitioned into that role. So she's taking it over. And she's come a long way. So now I basically just oversee a few of the details just to make sure everything's kind of going as planned. But this past weekend actually was her first completely on her own wedding. So
nice.
And everything went well. So it's good. She's coming along, and that'll become a full-time job. She'll also be involved in the bar. She'll be a bartender for us because she is a server as well. So yeah, I still want to have a general manager for both of those properties. But it's hard. I think it's a double-edged sword being in these micro markets, because I do find there is a lot of great work ethic in these micro markets, but there's just not as many people, obviously. So, and nobody's moving to Teeswater to take care of a bar.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, how many units between the two properties are you working and handling right now?
There's 10 bedrooms in the mill, which really is just one property because they rent it all at once.
At once, okay.
Yeah, and then we have 4 units in the one building and 3 units in the other. So those are all midterm rentals.
Okay, all right. So it's
and then we still have I have another one in Waterloo and one here as well. So
okay, so what's the one in Waterloo and the one here?
Here at our house, we have a unit on the end of the house that we have a long-term tenant in. Mm-hmm. And I own a condo, a 2-bedroom condo in Waterloo. So right now that was an Airbnb for years, but now we have a long-term tenant in there. And that's only because I needed to kind of take something off my plate. So, and he's working out well, so it's good.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So, you went from flipping to holding to, doing a bunch of short-term Airbnbs, creating a really cute little, mini resort, boutique resort, however you call it. I think it's awesome. Would you go back to flipping? And if in this time, or is that not something that you guys want to do?
We definitely are looking for a flip right now, actually.
Okay.
So I would like to do a few this year. Just again, they're great cash flow, and I think there's always an opportunity for a flip. You know, it's different and it changes as the interest rates change and our business changes. But I think that there's always potential and room for a flip. There are still people buying houses. There are still people that need to get out of their house for one reason or another. So yeah, I definitely, we're searching actively right now. We've been searching for the past probably 2 or 3 weeks. It's a little harder, I would say, to find that property. But we're looking at another resort as well right now. So
another resort to keep or another resort to flip?
I don't know. I would really like a partner on this resort because it's just, again, it's a lot, right? So if we could find the right partner, we would keep it. If we don't, we'll probably flip it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And in terms of a typical flip right now, like, are you looking to do more of like a single family flip to like an end user? Are you looking to convert and then, you know, create multiple units and then sell from there? Like, what's your strategy that you think makes sense for where you are right now?
Both of those. We would like to do, we always want to create something, a unit. So generally it's a single family home that we're going to duplex. I don't want to get anything that's already rented and has tenants in it. So we're not, I hate evicting people for any reason. So it's necessary. And many times we say, you know, it's not me. Blame the guy that owned the building for however many years and let it get run down and whatnot. But still, it's hard, you know. So we would prefer to take something that's empty and create units in it. So that's what we would be looking for with a house. But ideally, again, it's something with a little bit of commercial space that we can create 3 or 4 or hopefully 5 apartments on, and then we can look at the MLI Select as well. So those are our two.
The MLI is a good option. I know we're using it for our stuff as well, and converting commercial space to residential, and you have no rent controls right now on these units, which helps too. But yeah, no, I think that is, you know, a good thing for the future. Now you might want to keep them once you exit with MLI, because they could be pretty lucrative, you know, with the property, and you may not want to sell it, but you never know. That could be a good one to bring in even a partner on as well, if you are looking for that. So I think that's where I think we were talking a little bit about JVs and money partners and that kind of stuff prior. Where are you guys at right now? Like, what do you know, are you looking for partners? Are you looking for money partners, joint venture partners?
Yes. So up till this point, we have done everything ourselves. We haven't ever had a partner, but we've met some really, really good people in the last couple of years, which is what has kind of sparked that whole thing. Is, you know, it would be sure nice to work with somebody that you like. It makes it always more fun, you know, to do it, because it can get stressful. Everybody gets stressed out in this business, and there are difficult times. So if you can, you know, share that with somebody, that would be great. And then for us, again, because we've always done it ourselves, you know, there's a time that you tend to get maxed out, you know. So obviously, personally, we can't do anything more, which is also why we look for the multi-res buildings, so that we don't have to qualify for that anymore. But we definitely are looking for a JV partner, probably a few. I want to start with one. It's crazy that I would be thinking about the resort for that. It's a big project, but it'll be a lucrative project as well. So I think it's a good project in that way to start with a partner. So we are looking for money partners and or joint venture partners, you know, somebody to hold it with us and just kind of run it with us.
Okay. All right. Very cool. I'll tell you, you really got to find the right partners, and vice versa, right? For especially resorts and things that are not, you know, quick ins and outs, because these are the ones that I think if people come in, there's less certainty than a typical BRRRR or typical buy and hold. So it's just important. Like, and I know everyone's like, oh, a resort, that's amazing. Like, but like, I mean, I'm super lucky. I have amazing partners in this resort with Harry James and Joe Ferrara, but you know, you got to also figure out like, what is the person bringing to the table, or is it complimentary? Is it, all that stuff. And, because these are usually things that like require hands-on management in some capacity, even if you're managing a team. And it's not as passive. So that's
Right.
like a different partner versus maybe you're like a flip that you might want to do.
Right. Yeah. How long have you had that resort now?
So we bought the land in 2021, closed on it in end of June. And then so we just started running it as of, I would say, June of 2023, with 3 cabins. It will be 9 when it's done, but it's, it's fun, but it's like, especially starting in a time with high interest rates where people don't have the same disposable income, where the prices, is obviously higher because we're a bit of a higher end boutique resort. But it comes with its challenges, and you pivot along the way. And one of the things that I think we're pivoting to anyways is we're actually going to make it more of like a membership resort where they have access to the resort and they have access to some free nights, etc. So I think we're going to actually pivot that way, because
Cool.
it'll allow us to like keep it like more exclusive and like do something unique. And then those folks that are members can also rent it for like their events and that good stuff, in addition to the free nights. But I think from a financing standpoint as well, like when we look at it is, so it's like a win-win, because then we could use that income to actually qualify with, doing the rest of the development faster.
Right. Yeah. Challenges right now with getting financing for those properties is huge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is why like we got lucky with the credit union, because the credit union looked at projected income versus like a typical bank would have actually been like, give me 2 years of actuals, so
Right.
This is why it helps to like, understand the financing and where to go for what.
Yes.
And some local credit unions, are very good. So
yeah, that'll be the one thing I'm looking forward to, because the other challenge we have in micro markets is when you are under 10,000 in population, it is very difficult to get financing. So thankfully, we've kind of broken that barrier now with the first building. So the second building is much easier. Right. And we have friends that purchased another building beside our first building. So we've kind of broken the ground for them too. But, it's good, because the more investment we have, the more everybody's property is protected and the values are going up. And we've seen a huge transition in the town just since we've been there in the last couple of years. So it's exciting from that standpoint too.
Yeah.
No, but it'll be nice to get to a bigger market. And
you're probably helping, you're helping the shops, because if you're bringing, so like, I know for us, like we do like welcome baskets, and it has like the baked goods from the bakery in town. And so like, yes, guests go back and like buy more, because they love like all the baked goods that she makes. And like, I think it's just good to like, you're giving back to the community as well. And like the businesses in the area get to profit as well from,
for sure,
people coming into the area.
Yep, that's for sure. Even our local Rona store, we've spent like $250,000 with them in the last couple of years, right? So it's good. We try to hire as many locals as we can. We leave our Kitchener team mostly there, and then we have been developing a new team up where we are. So it's very good for the economy in general as well. So nice. It's a good feeling.
Absolutely. So Nancy, I mean, half an hour just goes by so quick. It's time for our lightning round. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions that every guest gets the same ones. You're going to answer the first question that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
Sure.
All right. Question number 1 was your favorite real estate investing book.
I'm going to say Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
I don't know that that's an investing book, but it's my favorite.
It's actually the number 1 most answered on this podcast.
Oh. Wow.
By far. So if anybody still hasn't read it, go read it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Number 2, not necessarily real estate related, and I don't know if you listen to podcasts, but you have a favorite podcast about entrepreneurship or business or anything at all?
I listen to a few. I cannot tell you off the top of my head which one comes to mind. Most often I listen to Mel and Dave, but I do listen to a few.
Okay, awesome. Number 3, I know you mentioned you don't have a whole lot of time, but what do you do for fun?
We have a motorhome, so we like to camp and go as often as we can.
Nice, nice. Number 4, if you lost everything tomorrow, your assets, your money, your real estate, how would you start again?
With everything that's in my head. I always say I'd risk it all because you cannot take away my knowledge and I can always start over. We have a very high risk tolerance.
Yeah, well, clearly to be buying in a very small town and creating some resorts. I mean, it's awesome. I love it. Like I love that. Last question, number 5. If somebody has $50,000, they want to get started somehow, how would you recommend they get started?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say private lending. Now, if they don't want to be a working partner, I would say they should start private lending. And if they want to be a joint venture partner, then $50,000 makes a great down payment. So they can start in that sense. Okay.
All right. Perfect. Thank you for playing the lightning round. Where can my listeners reach out, find out more?
At the Post and Beam, www.thepostandbeam.ca.
Amazing. Nancy, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, Sarah. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?